Welcome to another lore video, and things haven't moved on massively, and they're probably not going to in any major way until the first of the expected content updates in April. But nor is that too far away now, so there have been a couple of developments. Let's take a look at them and some of the storylines that are emerging and likely to be expanded on when the update drops. The big news is the reforming of Aegis, and almost immediately they're hard at work trying to design new ways for us to deal with the Thargoids. The caustic sinks, whose future existence was leaked, if you'll pardon the expression, at the start of the war, are now a reality. Aidan Tanner, in his newfound role, has been flying into Maelstroms to test a prototype, and a CG ran to collect, amongst other things, samples from the caustic generators inside Maelstroms and bring them to Aegis for study. This has resulted in the caustic sink being made available for everyone through the human technology broker. For those who didn't get some from the community goal, they're unlocked with caustic tissue samples and other caustic substances which you need to get from the caustic generators inside a Maelstrom. This seems crazy on the face of it, like having no clothes to wear while you go to the store to buy clothes, or killing a dragon in a cave in order to get a dragon killing sword. But it's actually pretty standard video game mentality to give you an easier way to do things once you've done it the hard way first. Getting the caustic shards and corrosive mechanisms isn't too hard. You just destroy a generator and pick up the bits. You can use normal weapons. A long range beam laser is good because you can just aim at a generator without having to target it and destroy it before it flies away. For the tissue samples, you have to get within about 1.2 kilometers of a generator to target them, which means running very, very cold or popping heat sinks to stop the generator from exploding or flying away. Then scan it with a xenoscanner, select the sub-target, which is a docking point for the research limpet, fire the limpet, and then wait a minute for it to get the sample. The generator will try to fly away from the limpet, and if you don't stay with it as it flies away, you will lose it as a target and the limpet as well. So be ready to follow it around until the limpet actually attaches. Then when you have the tissue sample, it's toxic and causes slow module damage for as long as you're carrying it, unless you have a corrosion resistant cargo rack. One trick you can try is to pop a heatsink, get close to the generator, scan it with a xenoscanner, select the sub-target and fire the limpet. Then as soon as it's attached and starts the sampling process, back off a bit and destroy the generator. Just get a bit further back than I do here. The research limpet can still finish the job as long as it attaches first and starts sampling before you destroy the generator, and then you're no longer chasing it around while it finishes the job, so you can pick up the other materials while you're waiting. Unlike serious heat sinks, you only have to unlock caustic sinks once. Then you can buy as many as you like. Hopefully that's intentional and won't be changed. At first the sinks were not available for purchase after unlocking them, but throughout Friday they gradually started appearing on the rescue ships, and I got mine from the one at Samis, the home base of Princess Ashley. Once you've got them, they're extremely useful in AX combat, soaking up caustic damage from missiles and caustic clouds. There's a bar that you'll see filling up, and then when it's full you eject the sink, so you don't fire it straight away. You wait for it to fill up with caustic damage and then you eject it. Going through a cloud fills about 10% of the bar on a caustic sink. A caustic missile from a scout uses about 20%, and a missile from a Hydra will fill it up in one go. They don't reduce your heat, they're just for absorbing caustic damage, so you're still going to need regular heat sinks for cooling down, but having a caustic sink on a ship is still very, very useful. They can also be engineered through Ramtar for extra ammunition. It doubles the mass and increases the time to synthesize refills by 50%. But if that's worth the trade-off to you, then it's an option. Synthesizing refills though, as many will want to do in combat, requires caustic shards and corrosive mechanisms, which of course means going back into a Maelstrom to stock up on them. For rescues and deliveries, one caustic sink on your ship should be plenty, because you're not hanging around to fight and you can restock at each end. So a bit of effort to get them, but worth it, especially for anti-Xeno operations, but also for rescue and delivery ships. Let's say you get hit by a caustic missile while you're leaving a station with passengers on board, which has happened to me a few times. Not having to worry about caustic damage immediately allows you to get away first and sort it out later. You could burn off the damage, but you don't want to be taking time out to do that while trying to get away with passengers on board. So anything like this that buys you time to get out of the system first without taking lots of damage to the hull and then deal with it once you've jumped can only be a good thing. It seems only a matter of time now before either Aegis or someone else works out how to make use of the data we receive whenever we get hyperdicted or interdicted in the war zone. Some technology to avoid them would be nice and negate at least one of their advantages. They're the only species that can pull someone out of hyperspace, and it would certainly help us out at the PDES if we could evade them and not have them cut into our travel time while we're doing rescues. Jumps themselves aren't a big deal to us, but we could still do without them being interrupted so that operations take longer and give us Thargoids to deal with that the rescue ships are not generally equipped to fight. We get in, we get passengers, and we get out fast. So anything that helps us to do that faster is welcome. Thanks to the caustic sinks, and because it's now possible to survive a little bit longer in maelstroms, Aegis's next project is to gather information about the energy waves that throw you back if you go in too far. Combating those will of course allow further penetration of the maelstrom as we've tried to find that elusive centre to see what's there. Aegis are also interested in ammonia worlds in order to expand their database and try to predict where more maelstroms, if they turn up, will arrive. And they've joined forces with Universal Cartographics to pay you for finding and mapping ammonia worlds. This is obviously reminiscent of the time when Sirius also wanted data on ammonia worlds. They wanted it for a different reason, or so they said. They said they wanted to learn how to terraform ammonia worlds, but there were a few people thought, yeah, right, that's just a cover story, and what you really want is to try and capture a live Thargoid. Whatever the case, you would have thought that Universal Cartographics would have freely given Aegis any ammonia world data they already have. Thousands of them have been found, but it gives them something to do, and us something to do, I suppose. If it gives us any more knowledge of the Thargoids, then so be it. The community goal to hand in ammonia world data is running for 2 weeks, and on Inara you can search for ammonia worlds to get started with. The reward is higher payouts for explorer data for a couple of weeks afterwards. Princess Aisling continues with her support for Aegis and superpower cooperation in general. This article says pretty much what I said before, and what most players also saw as an obvious move by Orisa, vindicated in her isolationist policy if Aisling fails, or justified in allowing the exception to the rule if Aisling succeeds. What the article adds to that is the possibility that if Aisling does succeed, then support for her instead of Orisa might grow. Is this a setup for later, or is it just another will they won't they in a never-ending succession debate? Whether this is the aim or not, to pit Aisling against Orisa, it is a change for Aisling herself. Since the start, she's always been described as only appearing on the more light-hearted chat shows where she doesn't have to answer any of the hard questions, while Orisa is the one with a reputation for facing problems head-on, and for this reason Orisa has always been seen as a better leader for her practicality over her idealism. But now it looks like a reversal of that situation, with Orisa in denial about the Empire needing help from anyone, and Aisling being the one more willing to face reality and see the value in cooperation. So perhaps the time has come to ask, has Orisa become too comfortable in power? Has she become too complacent and apathetic to recognise or do anything about real problems when they happen? Is Aisling still the vainglorious young upstart, or is she finally coming into her own as a leader? Archon, Delaine and the Kumo crew, that still gets me. They sound like a Northern Soul band from the 70s. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Archon, Delaine and the Kumo crew, and they go into some wacka wacka disco number. Well, he might have been intending to take over California, but the players soon put an end to that, making sure his control didn't expand by doing BGS work to stop him. And again, this is a nice example of FDev taking the result of a community goal that had no opposition at the time, but whose effects were then mitigated by the player base afterwards, and then bringing their efforts back into the story. BGS is hard work, so when player initiatives like this happen, it's nice for them to be recognised. With the California sector already attacked, it was probably inevitable that Witchhead would be attacked at some point, and this has now happened. It's an odd situation with the attacked, damaged and abandoned stations adopting the new mechanics of the war machine, but with no progress bar, no passenger missions, and the wounded want to be taken to the rescue ships 900 light years away. Now, this is obviously a hand-placed invasion that is not part of the war machine, and what we're supposed to do about it isn't clear. Some deliveries perhaps, if there are reasonable sources nearby, and I guess people could fly stuff down there in carriers, but it's a lot of work for no guarantees of success, no way to see how well you're doing. There are anti-Xeno conflict zones as well, but still, with the war on, trying to defend systems over 600 light years away at the same time, any operations in Witchhead look set to fail and only split our forces further, and we're pretty thinly spread as it is. Chloe Sidisi, Professor Palin's protege, who offers the same upgrades as he does, she's gone from Cinderdock in Shenv, and you can't even land at Cinderdock. A fragmented radio message is all we have, so we don't know if she got away or not, and we'll have to see where that story goes. It seems as if the Thargoids outside the bubble, perhaps empowered by the sisters in the bubble, are now ready to take out those pesky colonies parked near their barnacle sites, California, Witchhead, Coalsack, and we'll have to see if they get destroyed or whether these attacks are hit and run. You would think though, with 6 unused rescue ships, they might move a couple of them down there. Zachary Rackham, entrepreneur to some, pirate to others, is now running his campaign for office in the Federation. The presidential election isn't till June, but it's already being set up now. Whether he runs against the T-1000 or not depends on whether Congress allows Hudson to run for a second 8-year term. Otherwise he'll be up against Vice President Jerome Archer to ultimately decide who competes with Felicia Winters to be the president. Quick correction to the last video where I said controlled systems were not showing progress properly. That was after a statement by Sally in the forums which said that it wasn't registering properly on the progress bar, but this turned out to be a mistake. FDev have since clarified it and said that it's actually a target increase. Why? After having not all of your progress reset after a week and having no time limit on controlled systems, instead of those measures helping us to clear some of them, they've gone and made it almost immediately more difficult again by increasing the work needed, almost as if they felt the need to compensate us for giving us a break. And it feels like giving with one hand and taking away with the other. So once again they want us to engage, but then make it artificially difficult to do so for no good sound reason. I get that setting targets for things isn't easy, but going from one extreme to the other all the time like this, it's reactionary, it's excessive, and we need more balance than that. Okay, moan over. There's some other weird things going on as well. The site where the Proteus, the Anaconda belonging to Azimuth, had escaped the takeover of the Hesperus by Pharmasapien and landed at a Guardian site in the Trapezium sector. That site now has a bug where the game crashes if you try and land there. Pretty sure the crash isn't intentional, but is it because they no longer want us going there? We don't know, and we haven't had any feedback on this yet, but it's been noted by several players now, and obviously having the game crash instead of letting you see something you shouldn't is not ideal, so this one is a bit of a head scratcher. Possibly it has something to do with whatever D2 will uncover on her lone wolf journey to find more information to bury Salvation and Azimuth with. You might remember a while ago I said that the obelisks at Guardian sites were all showing the same 2 symbols. Now I thought this was a result of the Proteus wave being fired, but after some more reading I found out that in fact this began after the update in March, months before the Proteus wave was used. Also I learned that this is how the obelisks used to display many years ago, with 3 symbols flashing, then 2, and then none, as successive patches changed how they worked. Now it seems they've reverted to one of those previous states. and FDev are neither confirming or denying whether it's a bug or done on purpose. If it is done on purpose, then it can't be in response to the Proteus wave, obviously, but it could still be in response to Salvation's previous uses of his super weapon. The September before was the first use of the weapon in Cornsar, and then he used it 3 times again in December, in Operation Trihammer, when we had 24 stations on fire. So although they were not as powerful as the Proteus wave, they were still system-wide EMP attacks. And it's not unreasonable to suppose that by March, some of that radiation could have drifted into Guardian space and been detected, activating their network of obelisks, which are reacting in the way that we see now. It's happening in both Horizon and Odyssey, so it's not been caused by an update to only one of them. Like so many of these things, we still can't rule it out as a reaction to Salvation using lots of Guardian technology in his super weapons, and nor can we automatically rule it in, so all we can do is just keep an eye on it and see if that becomes clearer in time. But the Guardians being involved at some point seems more and more likely as time goes by. In a Frameshift Live a few weeks ago, Bruce arranged 3 blue M&Ms in a triangle, and a blue triangle is what you would see if you looked at a Guardian relic end on. And then recently, Tom Kuhl was making triangle signs with his hands, while Sally and Arthur were talking about something else. The triangles are a shape associated with Guardians, in the same way as the number 8 is associated with Thargoids. So if this isn't a hint at Guardian involvement sometime in the future, then it's hard to see what else it could indicate. Wing missions have a triangle, and some people have wondered if this means wing missions will clear a system faster. But as there are only wing missions for anti-Xeno and deliveries and not rescues, that would be a bit unfair and unbalanced. And I'm not just saying that as a member of a rescue squad. I think if you're going to have a bonus like that, it should apply across the board. There was also a slip by Arthur when Sally was comparing how the Thargoids saw us, that maybe they see us the way some of us would see a spider and just squash it, basically. And then Arthur replied saying, no, you can't use that analogy because they are just as big as us, and you can clearly see Sally glaring daggers at him as if to say, shut up, Arthur, shut up, Arthur. So is that an interesting giveaway? The first official hint that we'll be getting Thargoids on the ground. It didn't go unnoticed by people, and if nothing else, at least confirms one thing about them that isn't just from a second-hand reading of the lore, but actually confirmed by the company. Thargoids are the same size as us, on foot. My gut feeling is that we will see Thargoids on the ground at the end of the year with the last update. That is just a feeling, and if we get them sooner than that, I doubt if anybody will complain too much, because it's what we're all looking forward to, isn't it? It's where it's all headed. Odyssey is all about being on foot. Let's have some Legoids soon, yeah? Thanks for watching.